In the early hours, Europe's largest nuclear power plant faces shelling. As Russian forces attempted to capture the energy-producing city of Enerhoda, officials at the Zaporizhzhia plant say the assault caused a fire. Live footage showed the incoming shelling. On another angle, too, from a CCTV camera, the shells can be seen flaring in the sky and then landing on the site. Amid the alarm, an urgent appeal from the Ukrainian president.
Europe
has to wake up now. Europe's largest nuclear power plant is on fire. At this very moment, Russian tanks are shooting at nuclear reactor blocks. These are tanks equipped with thermal vision devices, so they know where they're shooting. They were prepared for this.
Zelensky also spoke directly to Joe Biden and Boris Johnson. Despite the panic, by 6 a.m. local time, the fire reportedly in a training building had been extinguished. The International Atomic Energy Agency says it hasn't affected essential equipment, and Ukraine's regulator reports no change in radiation levels. Ukrainian authorities say Russian forces have now taken control. But Russia says the nuclear plant has been under their control since Monday and that it was attacked by a Ukrainian sabotage group in a monstrous provocation. NATO foreign ministers in Brussels today are furious.
Well, this was a completely reckless act. We've heard now that the fire has been extinguished, but it is extremely concerning that forces are prepared to do this. We've called for an urgent meeting of the UN Security Council. This is a threat to European security and stability, and we need those responsible to be held to account.
And yet Vladimir Putin believes his special operation in Ukraine is going according to plan.
Sit down, please.
So says President Macron, who spoke to the Russian leader by phone, having met in person in early February.
What?
With no end to the war in sight, this group of friends in Lviv have decided they need to learn military skills to fight Russian forces. An injured former Ukrainian soldier teaches them how to handle weapons.
It's better to shoot from a lying-down position because it will be easier.
This welder is making metal barriers to be used as roadblocks to try and stop incoming soldiers.
The youngest here is 16. The eldest is 68, and it turns out that the people who are older, they have understood there's no place to run. The worst thing that could happen has already happened. The war is already at our door.
Every night they leave the finished barriers outside the scrapyard for anyone to take, defiant and determined to stop Russian troops.
Fatima Manji reporting. Well, in an act of defiance, 300 members of the Ukrainian parliament who secretly met yesterday in Kyiv sang the national anthem together in the parliament amid the ongoing shelling by Russian troops. Well, the MP you saw there was Yaroslav Zelezniak, and he joins me now. Thank you very much for joining us. I know you don't want to tell us exactly where you are, but can you tell us what the situation is there at the moment?
Hello. I'm now in Kyiv Oblast. As you know, it is one of the most active districts now in Ukraine where Russian soldiers trying to occupy and block Kyiv. Now the lack of petroleum and the power, so they are stuck in near the north of the Kyiv, and I hope they will not receive and make forward their actions. But now I'm trying to help with humanitarian aid to Kyiv and Kyiv Oblast. Yesterday, as you saw, we 300 MPs, it is the constitutional majority in Ukrainian parliament, gathered in the building of Ukrainian parliament, not in some hiding place, not exactly in the building of Ukrainian parliament, and voted at approximately 100% 12 draft laws, which was needed for wartime. We also voted our request to all international organizations, all countries which now support Ukraine, with request to close sky above the Ukraine to create no-fly zone, because you see the Russians are now trying to, by their missile, destroy our towns, destroy our infrastructure, and unfortunately, as we saw today night, they try to also destroy nuclear power stations, and it is not the only risk now for Ukraine.
Indeed.
It's also the risk for all Europe and the whole world, because once again, this Zaporozhye nuclear station is 6 times more risky than Chernobyl station.
Well,
and
just on that point, I mean, as you say, an extraordinary act of defiance by the MPs yesterday, but I wonder how long that defiance can last in the face of some really alarming developments, not least this attack on the nuclear power plant last night. I mean, that must spread real alarm among Ukrainians.
Yes, and unfortunately, it could be long. And we understand that we are smaller army comparing with Russia, a big country, and a lot of soldiers. But we are protecting our land. And yesterday and days before that, I was in Kiev. And if you are in Kiev, you understand that it is impossible to any country to occupy and to take power inside Kiev. They could block around Kiev, but if you are going as a Russian soldier inside Kiev, you will be killed, because there is a lot of weapons on the street. There's a lot of cocktail Molotovs on the street, and the people of Ukraine, we have 2 revolutions and democracy and the European Union choice. So it is impossible to get inside Kiev.
But what are you hearing from Mariupol and Odessa? Because we are hearing very bleak reports from those places.
Look, I'm born in Mariupol, and I'm from Mariupol. It is for our understanding, it's one of the most eastern city in Ukraine. It's 600,000 populations. My sister now in Mariupol, and I have not any connection with her husband or herself at least last 3 days. I know that they are sitting without electricity. I know that they're sitting without any supply of food, and even there is, I'm not sure that any other communal services are provided now. I just spoke with my cousin, and he has neighbors which could see the house of my sister, and they say that now it's okay. It's not under a missile attack. But once again, it's a very bad situation, as well as in Kharkiv.
I just want to ask you very, very quickly, sir. NATO foreign ministers are meeting today. Ukraine have made it very clear what they want from NATO. NATO have made it very clear there is no question there will be no fly zone. Is there anything else they can offer you right now?
Look, what we need from all countries, all international organizations. First of all, no-fly zone. Second is providing more weapons, because in Ukraine we have the army, and as well we have so-called territory security. It is just civilians who gather in groups and protect their own cities. There is checkpoints, they connect it with army, so it is like second army of Ukraine. And now they asking just hamlets, the bulletproof clothes, and weapons.
Yaroslav,
bullets.
I'm sorry to cut across you there, Yaroslav Zelezniak. We have to finish there, but thank you so much for talking to us. Thank you. Well, here the government has called for a special meeting of the UN Security Council. Our political correspondent Liz Bates is in Westminster. Liz, what can you tell us?
Yes, well, as that situation was developing overnight with the nuclear power plant, what we know is that there was a phone call between President Zelensky and Boris Johnson. And in that phone call, the Prime Minister told the Ukrainian President, first of all, the reckless actions of President Putin could now threaten the security of all of Europe. He also said to him that he would now seek that meeting, as you said, an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council in the coming hours. Elsewhere, the Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss, is in Brussels. She'll be in meetings today of NATO, of G7 foreign ministers, and also there will be a meeting of the EU's Foreign Affairs Council. Now, the government here has been under pressure over sanctions, critics saying that they need to go much further. That is an issue that she has said that she will be raising with allies today.
We've been very coordinated in sanctions. We've shown huge unity. It's having a big effect in Russia, but we now need to do more. We particularly need to look at the oil and gas sector. How do we reduce our dependence across Europe on Russian gas? How do we cut off the funding to Vladimir Putin's war machine? That's what I'm going to be advocating at both the G7 and the discussions with the EU.
Yes, that comes after some criticism here of the UK's sanctions regime, including from some Conservative MPs, and in particular the targeting of individuals, the seizing of assets here in the UK. What critics say is that that process has been too slow and that it just simply hasn't been transparent enough. So that is one area where we could expect to see some movement in the coming days.
Liz, thanks very much. Now, the head of the UN's nuclear watchdog says he's willing to travel to the Chernobyl site to negotiate with Russia and Ukraine with the aim of ensuring the safety and integrity of nuclear sites during the conflict, calling the situation extremely tense and challenging. Well, joining me now is Dr. Patricia Lewis, who's director of the International Security Programme at Chatham House. Dr. Lewis, thanks very much for speaking to us today. I mean, how alarmed should we be?
Well, this is a very big change in conflict, a direct attack on a nuclear facility that's actually active, opposed to Chernobyl, which was a storage facility post the disaster in the 80s. So it's a big issue. And I think that the IAEA, that's normally so cautious and so careful with all of its member states, including Russia, and that made a statement that was agreed by all countries a few years ago, back in 2009, that there should be no attacks on nuclear facilities, civil nuclear facilities, has come out very strongly here, calling it a Russian projectile. That's really quite a big step. And also, I think the Director General, Rafael Grossi, offering to go to Ukraine, specifically to Chernobyl, to talk about how to stop this, how to protect the sites and make sure that not only Ukraine, but the rest of Europe is safe from a radioactive incident.
And that is evidence of how serious this is, isn't it? This offer to go and essentially try and broker some sort of negotiation between the two sides.
Exactly. I mean, it's a really an amazing thing. He has to go to Tehran now, to the Iran nuclear talks. That has to happen. There's a critical moment. And then he's offering to go to Ukraine and put himself forward before any inspectors come. So he's almost saying, you know, I dare you to attack me. I mean, it's really a big step for the leader of an international agency like the IAEA. But I think that if we look at what's actually going on, there is no radioactive release. But there are some real dangers at that site and at the other sites in Ukraine. In that you have the reactors are on site. There are 6 on this particular site. And then you have spent fuel, which is the leftover fuel that goes into big cooling ponds and stays there for a long time. They're very radioactive. They're very dirty radioactivity, lots of very nasty, dangerous isotopes. And they're covered by a concrete shelter to withstand an airplane crash. But would they withstand a missile attack? I think this is one of the big worries that the nuclear community has at the moment.
And of course, as you say, it is very different from Chernobyl, but that ghost hangs over everything, doesn't it?
That ghost, and also Fukushima. So one of the things we learned from Fukushima is how important it is to have external power to nuclear reactors. If the external power supply were to be attacked or accidentally caught in an attack, then we would find ourselves in a very dangerous situation, very similar perhaps to Fukushima, in one of the areas where there are active reactors. There's one active now at this particular site. So, you know, there's such dangerous areas to be attacking that we really do need to have some protective capability there, which the IAEA is trying to do.
Dr. Patricia Lewis, thank you very much for talking to us today.